So that year was just this crazy internal battle between who am I? What do I really want to do? What else could I do? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I not sleeping? Why am I not eating? Just this epic, like WrestleMania thing happening between my authenticity and my ego. And for the first time, maybe ever, maybe in a long time, the authenticity won. And it said, let's try a different direction. And it's incredible to think that, you know, I've left a job and I'm on my own and it's actually profitable to simply be me. Crazy.
What's going on, guys? On this episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Jamie Gruber.
And Jamie Gruber. Don't forget
the Jamie Gruber.
He is a legend. He gets the in front of his name now.
He does. And there might be some of you who are like, I don't know who the hell that is. He is a very good friend of ours. He has a very successful podcast called the Tribe of Millionaires Podcast. You might have heard me on it several months ago, or several of our guests have been on it too that have come through. And he is a fellow GoBundance member with Dan and myself. And he is like just such a great personality. And he left his high-paying corporate career to basically start another business where he focuses on helping people not have to work the soulless job that he was doing.
He does a good job too. He gets it. He does a really good job with that, and all of his content around like how to exit a W-2 job. He takes the mindset approach, but he also has a lot of his content like a tactical approach of how you should do it. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I love about what he does is, it says he made his business helping people be able to build their own lifestyles, but he does it exactly like you said with actually actionable steps. It's not just about like mindset, and sure, mindset stuff comes a lot into it because that is important. But he's not like some of these, gurus that go on stage and just say like, believe in yourself. Like he actually, was that too close to Tony Robbins? That voice I was going for?
Believe in yourself. Yeah. And I think let's talk about mindset for a second, because I thought there was a cool point which you guys got to go listen to, is the surrounding yourself with the right people, which is part of the program he has set up, the Emerge program, or Emerge Supercharged is what it's now called. But you have to surround yourself with the imagine when people, and not replace, but put in a different category, the remember when people.
Yeah, exactly. He's talking about kind of modifying your social group, and the faux pas that a lot of people say like, oh, you should, eliminate your old friends, only be around new friends. He's like, no, you just have to sort of change your framework about what your social circles look like.
And what they're each giving you. Yeah.
And I still don't know if he just like came up with that off the top of his head. If he did, that's like super solid, or if he heard that from somewhere else, or if he'd been sitting on that. Yeah, because it's really, really good viewpoint and a lot of actionable advice there. So anyways, guys, enjoy the show with Jamie. He is a wealth of knowledge, and reach out to him too. He is a super nice guy, and he loves to chat with everybody. So if you find this interview interesting, if you know anyone else who would be interested in getting away from their W-2 or just like building a better life and surrounding themselves with awesome people, please share this episode with them. It is a great way for us to grow the show, for you to share it with your friend group, your peer group. Aside from that, guys, if you want to start generating off-market leads, go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/free, and you can start finding off-market properties at massive discounts, just like Dan and I do every single month. So great way to give you the framework and sort of see behind the curtain about what kind of business Dan and I run. Aside from that, guys, enjoy this episode with Jamie. Take some notes, reach out to him, inquire on all the stuff that he works on, because he's doing some great things. So thanks for listening, everybody, and enjoy the show with Jamie Gruber.
Enjoy.
All right, guys, on the show today, we have Jamie Gruber, one of the guests I'm most excited to have. If you guys heard the episode that we shared a little while ago, that was the story of Mike DeHaan, which was a repost of Jamie's Tribe of Millionaires podcast. And I think actually to this day, it's still our most downloaded episode, believe it or not. So, yeah, Jamie, super excited to have you, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Welcome.
Appreciate you guys having me. It froze on me a second there during the intro, so I hope I didn't leave you any dead space. Did we come back right at the right time?
No.
Oh yeah, you're perfect. You're on that was professional. So
This is Caribbean Wi-Fi, man. It decides when it's going to work or not. That's the way it works.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's all right. Our guys will piece it all together though too, and it makes it a little bit more authentic that we're actually having a real conversation.
Yeah, real conversation with real people.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So awesome. Yeah. So thanks for coming on, Jamie, man. you're, for people who don't know who you are, give us kind of your background, where you came from and all the stuff that you've been working on. Cause I think people that are in this, they'll either know you from, I guess, GoBundance or hearing my interview on your Tribe of Millionaires podcast that we shared here, but you're obviously a lot more than just those couple of things. So I'd love to hear all the details.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate the time on and being able to come on and be part of this. So I appreciate you. And I apologize if you hear dogs barking for some reason. Of course, during a podcast episode is when they decide to go nuts. But my story,
it's always texture.
That's the way it goes. Texture, exactly. I like to say I'm a recovering East Coast guy. So I'm a New Yorker by way of Boston and eventually Michigan. All of that was in an insurance career. I was an insurance claims guy. And each of those moves was sort of moving up through the ranks, going from, claims adjuster to supervisor to manager, and eventually the position that for me, I thought was the pinnacle, which was being kind of an executive, not even kind of, but an actual executive within this insurance company, equity, bonus, all of that stuff. Made a few $100,000 a year. And it was supposed to be the culmination of, a career spent doing this thing. 17 years in, I got the job after 5 or 6 different attempts to get it previously in Michigan. And within 30 days of getting the job in Michigan, I was completely empty. I had no fulfillment whatsoever. This thing that was supposed to be the thing that like, wow, yeah, you did it. You made it. I was completely hollowed out. And it was a revelation for me, a realization for me that all the years prior to that I was grinding it out, taking lateral positions or going into roles that forced me to travel for weeks at a time, whatever I could do to get that executive job, I was sort of numbing of like an authentic voice inside of me, kind of like eating food or drinking or whatever, that was saying, man, this isn't you anymore. That you've never probably been this guy, but 13, 14 years in, like you're thinking, okay, why I feel hollow is because I need that executive job because I deserve it. When really what I was feeling, what was happening inside of me was I just wasn't connected to this being my thing. It probably never was, but at least at that point I could say, not anymore. So I get the job. I moved to Michigan. I'm miserable after 30 days. I have a boss who's an absolute ball buster, which makes it even worse. And I just need to find something. And I found real estate to try to get me unstuck, unlocked. Buy a couple of single family houses, a couple of duplexes, do the BRRRR method we've all heard about. Then I found GoBundance. GoBundance made me think a little bit bigger. So I started buying multifamily property, eventually partnering with a couple of other GoBundance guys to start syndicating multifamily property, which is what I do today. And between that and an online community that I built and partnered with the founders of GoBundance on, these things just felt way more fulfilling. And what was it, 2 years ago, I guess at this point, I just decided, you know what, it's time to go. So I quit the job and I've gone full time into my entrepreneurial endeavor. And now I'm at a point where 2 years in, like anything, probably many entrepreneurs, I'm doing a lot of things. And now I just got to figure out how to consolidate down and be a little bit more focused. But that's the journey. Yeah. The like journey of the entrepreneur.
Yeah. I got to say one thing that you reminded me, or I was thinking as this whole thing about being unfulfilled, like you worked up to this job and then you were like, this is not what I want. It's like, I'm going to maybe just like project on you a little bit, but success can hide unfulfilling work, right? Because when you're successful, it feels good. You had a successful career, you got to this point, and then when you got there to that pinnacle, you're like, man, I don't even like this job. I don't even like this company, maybe, like it hides that unfulfilling work that you're doing the whole way up on that journey.
Yeah. And I think that's why, that's right. That's why I think why people say money doesn't buy happiness, right? Because especially if you look at it from a corporate perspective, if you're not fulfilled by it, you can be doing extremely well and have no fulfillment.
Totally.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And for me, it was clear. Like everything had been driven by my ego. Everything. Like I am this. I'm this exact. I deserve to be there. Right. Everything was achieving, which is great. The ego drives that. You need your ego to help you. Your ego is what keeps you safe in that regard. But man, like I always say that this was 2017 when I made that move. Like my ego got me there. And at that point, my authentic self said, okay, hey, look, you drove us to this, but look at him. He's miserable. So it's going to be my turn, right? But the ego doesn't go down. The ego doesn't go like, okay, I'll step aside, right? So that year was just this crazy internal battle between who am I? What do I really want to do? What else could I do? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I not sleeping? Why am I not eating? Just this epic, like WrestleMania thing happening between my authenticity and my ego. And for the first time, maybe ever, maybe in a long time, the authenticity won, and it said, let's try a different direction. And it's incredible to think that, you know, I've left a job and I'm on my own, and it's actually profitable to simply be me. Crazy.
Yeah.
And that's what my authenticity has taught me, in conjunction with work on the ego. It's not like the ego's gone, but I hope you get that point, right? It's like those two forces came at each other, and it really unlocked a lot in me.
Yeah. Cool. No, that's awesome. So I guess when you made that leap, you've been in that career for a long time, since 17 years. Like, what was your position like? You were making good money, obviously. Yeah. Had you elevated your lifestyle, or were you smart enough to, I guess, be a little bit more reserved on the run up, so you had some runway, and you just, what was that whole transition?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, moving from Boston to Michigan it's hard to elevate lifestyle. Like, the cost of living is very different. Yeah. But my wife also stopped working at that time. So like I had made probably, I don't know, a $70,000 or $80,000 bump in salary. No, maybe that's not right. $40,000 or $50,000 bump in salary. But my wife lost $80,000 a year, right? So there was sort of like I was actually making less to make that move, but I was also moving to a cheaper spot. So net, probably about the same, kind of neutral. Gotcha. My house, our mortgage is $1,900 a month on a $400,000 income. That's not crazy. It's not cheap. It's not, too expensive or anything. And our total expenses when I got to the point where I was actually thinking about making this move, I had invested some money in real estate. So I had a little bit of passive income, and I didn't really take it because I had my job. I just sort of rolled it into an account just as a buffer for in case something happened. But if I needed to, I could take some passive income. I had saved up about 120 grand, it was earmarked to invest and do some things. But if I just looked at cash on hand, about 120 grand sitting there. And then I had these things that I was doing, these businesses, in particular, my Emerge program. I had this business that I'm looking at like, man, if I devote all of my time to this, if I really did, what's possible? So looking at expenses for me, I calculated my expenses. I don't know why I did it this way, as like mortgage, car insurance, heat, electric, Wi-Fi, cell phone. And like, that was it. No food, not health insurance. I just looked at like, this is my expenses. And it's like $3,200, $3,300 a month. Like, not crazy. So I'm like, let me round up because I forgot something. It's $4,000 a month. And I looked at what I could take passively, and it got me almost there. It was like maybe 3. And then I had 120 sitting over here. So I'm like, well, if I don't eat, never go to the hospital, I can float myself for a while. But in all honesty, it was like, all right, well, $4,000. I feel like I need these things to be able to build. Like, I need a car, I need my Wi-Fi, I need my cell phone. I need those things to be able to build and continue to build my business, which was the bet I was taking. So that's why I looked at that as my real expenses. Like, I know I'll get food and everything else as a result of that. But then I had, 120 grand, which would probably give me a year at least runway if I needed it. It's like, man, what could I do? So for me, I created a vacuum. I decided to create a vacuum. There's a great law called vacuum prosperity law. I don't know if you ever heard of it or not, but the idea essentially is, in order to have what you want, you have to remove what's there. So if you want, new clothes in your closet, you got to get the clothes out of the closet for the new clothes, the new style, the updated wardrobe to fit there. You want a new couch, the couch that's there needs to be removed to put another one. By removing the job for me, it created a vacuum such that time, energy, and effort would be poured into the future of what I'm trying to accomplish, as opposed to hanging on to something simply for the income.
Yeah.
That's a great explanation. I haven't heard that exact explanation. Mike tells his story, which is like, he just jumped out of an airplane and was trying to build a parachute down. Yours was a little bit more eloquent than that, and you survived too.
Well, yeah, he did it the responsible way. I did it the yuppie millennial way, where I'm just like, I don't know.
Well, worst difference case, though, Mike, right? So like, you were single, if I remember right? You were a single guy at the time, or maybe
I was married. I don't have kids though, so that makes a big difference.
And wife worked?
Yeah, she did work, so that helped a lot.
That's different. I would have jumped too. I'd say that when I talk to people about this idea of like, I want to quit my job, I go through this like, okay, let's do a question tree here. What are your expenses per month? They're X. Does your wife or husband work? Yes. Does their income cover your expenses? Yes. There's no other questions to ask, right? Unless your wife doesn't or husband doesn't support it, that's a whole thing. My place in life at this point, 2 young kids and a wife that was not working, right? So if I was just me and my wife and she's working, completely different decision tree. Jump with and build a parachute. I did to some extent. For many people that are in my situation, they may look at it as a very risky way of leaving. Like, wait, you didn't have passive income to like just step over comfortably into into entrepreneurial life? Like, no, I didn't. But what I had was a belief in what I could create, some money to protect me behind me, and then I went for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's such an important point too that people miss. I mean, I just like most entrepreneurs, I guess, especially those that have come up kind of quickly, you have your social group that kind of knew you before you were successful and then know you now. And people always start asking questions about like, how do they get in similar positions, what that can look like. And I've talked to so many people where they're like, we have like $80,000 in savings. We've been saving for years. Like, I think I just need to be like to like 150 or something before I feel comfortable doing that. And they're like, otherwise it's just too risky. I'm always like, what's the risk though? Because you have to believe in yourself at some point, and you're going to be successful because you're not a dirtbag. Like, you're in the position where you're already making good money. You've been able to save money. Do you honestly think that you're going to go and just be, I don't know, useless for so long that you're going to spend all of your money? No.
Well, now 150 becomes 250 the next year, and then 250 becomes 350. It's tough. Yeah, you're right. That's a great point.
And at the end of it, the ROI, people always like look at like, they want to be able to, they don't want to miss out on saving for retirement. They don't want to miss out on all these things over like the years it takes to figure out. But the ROI is so much higher, if you are fully committed to growing yourself and building your own income potential and building your wealth growing potential, as opposed to trying to balance it with, I don't know, your 4% 401k match that you're really worried about no longer having.
It's true, man. Like, look, I'm not an analytical guy by nature. That's not my thing. Spreadsheets scare me, right? But something that somebody else gave it this name that I did was an asymmetric risk analysis before making the leap. And what that looks like is this. What we think is, okay, if I leave my job, I'm going to go to zero. I'm going to be living under a bridge. I'm going to be unable to pay for my family. I'm going to be destitute, right? But it's like, okay, is that real? Look, I'm making $300,000-$400,000 grand a year. The reality is I could probably make 100. I can get a job, right? I can maybe even get my own job back. Most people I ask, like, okay, is your company hiring? Oh yeah. Oh God, we're hiring like crazy. If you left, could you get your job back? Probably, or real close to it. Like, so, okay. So then the worst case scenario is to get your job back, which means you're currently living your worst case scenario, right? So that's one element to think about on the bottom. The bottom is capped at, I got to get job back. So that's the bottom. But the upside is asymmetric, because if you actually align with whatever it is you believe in doing, the business you've created, the portfolio you've been building, the business you want to create or the business you're going to buy, and it hits, then the upside is forever, right? Like, so the bottom is capped at get my job back, but the upside is 7 figures, is living wherever you want to live. It's whatever vision you have for yourself. So that risk analysis is really asymmetric. And the other thing you said, I think, is really, really important, is the people that you knew before and the people that you knew after. I think a big time hack for me, and we're on GoBundance, was finding a community that represented future me before I became that. Like I always say, like, I had, at the time that I started to invest in real estate and think about entrepreneurship, I had a great remember when community, people that knew me for who I am or know me for who I've been, right? Or even talk in those terms. Remember when we got drunk? Like, those people, like, I have plenty of those, like, they're great. But I needed to find the imagine when community, right? People that don't know me for who I've been. They don't care who I am. All they're invested in and holding me accountable to is who I'm going to become. That was what I found with GoBundance, but I needed to find that. And I think a big thing people make the mistake of is that their identity does not shift when they quit their job or when they buy the first piece of real estate or when they open their business. The identity shifts before that, and then the result lags. And the best example I could give of this is for anybody who has kids. Dan, do you have kids?
Yep, 2.
Okay. When your wife became pregnant, you weren't a parent yet, right? The kid's not here. But boy, was your identity shifted to being a parent. Like, okay, I'm going to do parent shit, right? I got to get the room ready. Yeah. I'm going to go to the breathing classes, right? Like, your identity was fully on parent. And then 9 months later, the result lagged. You became a parent, right? Like, so, but the identity had a shift then. You didn't become a parent when your kid came here. You became that the moment your wife was pregnant. That's what you need to do if you're quitting a job or buying real estate or want to be a millionaire or whatever it is you have to create the identity now. And the easiest way to do that is find the community of people that represent future you, and you become that. And once you shift into it, everything, all the roads, your reticular activating system, whatever you want to call it, it all just sort of guides you there, because you're coming from being an entrepreneur or whatever. You're not trying to go to being an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. That's fascinating too, because if you can think back, and I don't know, Mike, if you can have some of these memories too in your life where you began to get traction or success, where you started shifting, you started growing, like the old groups of people you were with kind of start seeing you through a different lens, and that relationship changes. So I'm totally in line with what you're saying, Jamie, is you've got to find that new group for the new you.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, man. Absolutely. I think the other thing people say, like, oh, do I got to get rid of my friends and my family? It's like, no, you just need to, balance it out. Like, put them on the second row, right? Like there's a new group on the front row, the ones that you're going to talk to and interact with and maybe be more vulnerable with. But then on the second row is that friends you go drinking with, right? But try talking to your, you guys have done it. Talk to your friends that you grew up with that are in jobs or, don't like, what do they say? Like, dude, like, what about like 2 a.m. phone calls from your tenants about your toilet clogging, or my Uncle Tony went bankrupt. You got to watch yourself. Like whatever. You talk to those people about this stuff. You've talked to them. Remember when people about imagine when stuff. It doesn't work. So have the people to share the imagine when stuff, and then be remember when with your remember when people. Enjoy it,
dude. That's so cool. The remember when people and the imagine when people. That's huge.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's a good quote. I don't know if you just spun that up or if you heard that somewhere, but that could be like a a thing that you
t-shirt.
That you
I'm gonna get a t-shirt made for you, Jamie.
Yeah, right.
A book.
I think that. Yeah, right. There you go. And something too that's great right now, especially post COVID, is a lot of people. I think they have this mindset that you have to find that group locally, but it's not true. And especially now with COVID, it's so easy to have like a virtual community. It's like we have through GoBundance. Like I've spent so much time talking to a lot of GoBundance people through our pods, our Go pods, which are like our small groups that we get assigned to. And then just like other members in general that I've never met in person before, but I feel like I know them better than honestly most of my local friends here. And nowadays it's so easy to do that. And like, even back when I started, when I quit my job and what sort of changed that identity, it wasn't as common, but you could still find it. Like, so I actually started to make connections through like Reddit, and I got really involved in different subreddits that were focused on the lifestyle change that I wanted to have. And I remember telling people about that, and they thought I was psycho. Like I'm just like some weird forum guy that's like talking about, financial freedom on Reddit. With your
internet friends.
That sounds like some weird anarchy. Yeah, that sounds like some weird anarchy shit, We go and talk about how we're going to go against the corporate machine on our subreddit. But like now it's so easy, and you can find it in, free Facebook groups, even, you can find it in like paid groups. So like, I would say, Dan, you said like the times when things shifted, honestly, the biggest shift that, happened with, at least from my perspective, Dan and I, we joined a off-market real estate wholesaling mastermind. And all of a sudden it went from being around people that were sort of trying to figure out locally to we were around people all just through a Slack channel who were doing exactly what we were trying to do. And I had, even still to this day, there's some of those people I've only met once, and I would consider them some of my closest friends.
That's cool.
And most of our communication forever has been through chat, not even like vocal, but it's amazing what you can do these days. And it changes everything though. Like you said, it becomes like the imagine when people, and, all of a sudden you have everyone who it was the imagine when people, and then you all reach that future imagination. And then you all say, you remember when we were trying to figure this out, and look at where we are now. And they become your remember when people, but with like a different sort of rear view mirror.
More nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think
that's super good stuff.
Yeah. I think the speaking from the standpoint of like the employee mindset, to pay for something like that seems weird. Right. Like I'm going to pay for friends. Like, I don't get it. Is this the Illuminati? Like, what do you do? What is this group, this cult you belong to or whatever? It seems strange. And it did to me initially to like, but I think there's maybe even an age or stage of life dynamic with this, but I know when when I was teenagers, 20s, maybe up to about 30 or into my early 30s, the idea of paying people to do things that I could just easily do seemed crazy. Like, I'll just mow my lawn. I can clean my own house. Like, what am I going to pay? So that's stupid. But you're not established as much financially at that point, and you're probably a little bit less, I don't know, aware of time. 30 is old, right? When you're 20, 30 is an old man. Like, you're an established adult at 30. Until you hit 30, then you're like, I'm an infant still. At 30 does not feel any different. And then 30 to 40 goes like that. It goes in 3 days. I swear to you. I mean, Dan, you might be close. I don't know, but I don't think Mike, you're anywhere near.
Yeah, I'm close to 40. Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so it does go fast.
30s go fast, right? So there's a point in there where you start to realize like, wow, if 30 to 40 went that fast, 40 to 80 is going to go really, really fast, like faster than I ever thought of before. Not that you feel old, not that you're like, oh, I'm an old man now, none of that shit, but just it's going to go. So I think time and money shift the how you leverage them. So my time before was like, oh, I'm not going to give people money because I can spend the time. And as time has gone on and I'm realizing how compressed it is, it's like, no, you know what? I'm going to use my money over my time. So like we don't do anything in our house anymore. It's getting to a point of ridiculous, right? Like food prep, cooking, cleaning, laundry, pool, nothing. We pay for all of that, right? And it's not like, oh, you have all the money to do it. One thing, we moved to the Dominican Republic where it's really cheap to do all that stuff. But two, it allows me time on task that's dollar productive. And so mastermind groups or paid communities to me are the same thing. It's like I can go out and find a couple hundred millionaire men who want to be the best versions of themselves. I can walk around. I could go out here in the DR. I can go back to Michigan and just start knocking on doors and going to different RIA meetings and trying to piece together this network and spend hours and hours and days and lunches. And yeah, that guy's not quite my guy after a Starbucks meeting. Or I could pay 10, 15, 20 grand and there they are. They're all in one room.
Yeah.
So the efficiency of money at this age, at this stage in life, for me, it's mowing my lawn and it's who am I going to hang out with if I need that Imagine Win group I talked about. So I'm a huge fan. I was asked this at an event I spoke at last weekend. Like, well, how do you find your network? I'm like, pay for it. Simple. That's it. I know that sounds crazy, but just you waste 10 grand. Last night we went out. I had 2 old fashions and a dessert. That was a bad choice. Financially and health-wise, right? Like bad choice. That was $40 in shit that I just put into my body. Like I could find a lot of $40 stupid spends that I could add up to get me damn close to what I spend a year on a community. That's my
so true. Yeah. I love that. That's so true too. And like you could spend a lot more time trying to find that community without, spending money, but why not just spend the money and get into it right away? And like you said, if it's a waste of 10 grand, it's 10 grand. Who cares?
And I also don't know why it's kind of like a stigma. I feel like it's like for, I would say early adulthood, and I would say everyone early adulthood, like 40 and younger, right? You're still closer to college than retirement in that age group. But I think that's kind of where it exists. But if you look at the other groups, right, the older people, a lot of them, if they want to have a network community, they will go and spend dues at a country club or something like that, right? Where that's where they go and they connect with the people they want to do. Then you go to the younger people, they go and they pay for their social community by going to university, right? Where they're going to go and they're going to pay fat money to go to Harvard, not necessarily for Harvard education, but to be around Harvard people. That is what you're paying for, And so it's the same thing on either side. It's just for some reason, we're kind of, especially all of us being, white men in like the 30 to 50. There's this old Louis C.K. stand-up bit. He's like, we're in that age group where nobody cares about us. We're in the just shut up and do your job, asshole phase.
Yeah.
Right. And
so true.
So, but then when the people find out you're spending money for like friends, like that's dumb. Why don't you just shut up and go do your job? But so people don't understand that we have that need and that desire to do that just like everyone else does. No, that is super valid. And I mean, I think that's a perfect transition too, to talk about, I guess, what your business has turned into since you moved away with the GoBundance Emerge stuff, because essentially what you're doing is giving people the track to sort of get into that mindset and see if it even is a fit for them. Right.
Yeah, 100%. No, GoBundance gave me so many tools, so many, connections, a stable community beneath me. So that when I made the leap, when I left the job, honestly, my biggest opportunity was how many no's I had to say to things that people were bringing to me. Because if you become part of any community, they understand the value that you bring to that community if you've been there for any time. So the best decision I made, unknowingly, was jumping in before I left my job so that I could be around people who could get to know me. I could get to know them. I could serve and be served and all of that. And so when I left, it was crazy. I've learned this, like I could lose everything tomorrow. It doesn't matter. Like the money's on paper anyway, right? Like I could lose everything tomorrow. And the best equity I have is my social equity, my network equity, right? Like I've got a group of people that I could lean on to figure out how to rebuild. That's way more important than whether or not my real estate goes to shit or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So in that space, I got very passionate about talking to people about this, about, people that wanted to leave their job or whatever. And what was born out of that was a sort of a goal setting course with an attached community that I partnered with GoBundance on. And we called it, Emerge, and Ascend. And we're actually rebranding it effective January 1. I'm not sure when this comes out, but calling it Emerge Supercharged. So we're taking it kind of to the next level where we're going to be a bit more concierge level with our service of our members and that sort of thing. But the principles are the same. You got to have a vision. You got to have goals to support that vision. You have to install good habits in place of bad habits, stacking like Atomic Habits would say. You've got to have a plan or a planning ritual in order for you to execute on this vision. You have to leverage the community, a community of people, of like-minded people, to hold you accountable to getting there. So the course teaches all of that. The community has that, plus content, accountability pods, everything that we do in GoBundance, micro tribes, all these different elements where you can learn both outside in. So here's information, take it in and ingest it, and then do whatever works for you with it, or inside out. Like, hey, let's go in. What is it that's holding you back? What are the limiting beliefs? So we have mindset calls and mindset speakers that come in to talk about, what's blocking you and how can we help you release that inside out, as opposed to just here's a basket of tactics, figure out what to do with it. So there's education as well as that inside out component. But the objective is, hey, I want people to live a more fulfilling life. In our space, the measure we put on that is if your net worth grows, your network grows. So net worth is the metric we're using. So we try to create millionaires, and we've created 40 of them in the couple of years that we've been in existence that have gone to GoBundance, that are doing things on a bigger level, that are finding the value of being around people. But it all goes back to the process of accountability, and that's what they learned from this thing. And it's been my true passion, to be honest with you. That was probably the thing when I was getting ready to leave, that this was like, wow, this can be really something. And I was all in, kind of rolling into it.
Yeah. Right. And that's awesome. And something I want to elaborate on too, really quick, is, so for people who don't know, so GoBundance, you've probably heard Dan and I talk about it a lot if you've listened to the show at all. If you haven't, it is a millionaire mastermind group, and it does have like a net worth requirement to get into it. So basically what Jamie's talking about, what he's built here is, I would say, like the onboarding version of that to help people get into that financial and mental position to join GoBundance. Yep. And I think one thing that's interesting about Emerge too is, so GoBundance is men. There is a women's group that is, I think, somewhat new that they're revamping, but it's traditionally just been a men's group. But Emerge is both men and women, right?
Yeah. Right. So we feed both. Yep. Yeah. We feed both organizations with, or both masterminds with men or women that hit that millionaire mark. So yeah, it's fun.
Awesome. What I will say too, like I get super jealous sometimes that I didn't join the Emerge beforehand, because you guys have like kick ass education. Like I like some of the speakers too. It really is mind blowing, the quality. I would trade $120,000 of education at any university to just go to the Emerge. It's that good. I mean, business, mindset, everything like is so high quality. And that's not me just brown nosing Jamie. Like I've seen it, I've been on it. Like you put together some good shit.
No, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, we do some stuff around wealth. I know, Mike, we're going to get you in there at one point, but we've got even as simple as a guy. I don't know if you guys have met him, a newer GoBundance member who's got 4 or 5 million YouTube subscribers on like exotic snakes and spiders and stuff like that. He's doing 3 sessions teaching on how to build wealth on YouTube. Right? Like that sort of stuff is what we bring here. Because that's
person that's actually doing it. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it's fun.
It's funny. I connected with him actually. I'm might be buying a snake from him. My wife likes snakes. But he does like these exotic pythons that are super cool. No, that's awesome. So I guess, so it's like a 12-week thing. We said there's a lot of speakers. I guess, what is the full thing encompass, I guess, at its core, so people that were interested in that would kind of know what they're getting into? Because you also said it's changing. So I guess what it's been, this will be coming out after January 1 of 2023. Yeah. So what it's been traditionally has been an Emerge program, which is like 12 weeks, and then an Ascend program, which is like more of a GoBundance style, where it's like a mastermind and it's more free form. But are you like combining those, or like what is it going to entail?
What we're doing, what we had before, exactly, we had a 12-week course in Emerge. You go through that, and if you graduate that, meaning you complete the entire thing, then we can invite you to Ascend. So it was sort of a prove it model. It was, hey, we're going to give you proximity, because we have GoBundance members coming in all the time and teaching. We're going to give you transformation, because we're going to teach you and hold you accountable to, or the group is going to hold you accountable to achieving your goal that you set within this course. And then, we're going to make you prove it. Hey, if you complete this, show that you can stick through a 12-week program, we'll invite you to join Ascend, like the mastermind, the GoBundance Light, if you will. But the problem is, like for members is, okay, well, I'm over here. This was great. Now, what's over here? What's this other thing? So I was in Emerge, like, what's this other community over here? So what I said to my team was, look, let's combine these two into one. So we call it Emerge Supercharged. So 2 communities combined into one. Let's take the 12 weeks and condense it to 8 because we think there's a little fluff in there that we can get a little more efficient on and keep people kind of rolling. And let's really give them support. So we're going to look at every vision and give feedback. We're going to look at every goal that's set for the duration of the course and give feedback. We're going to schedule accountability calls to hold you to getting to where you need to get to by the end of the 8 weeks. And at the end of the 8 weeks, having gone through this and have exposure to everything that we offer, all the trainings that were exclusive to Ascend, all the different micro tribes, all the different components of what Ascend was are right there in front of you. You're participating in it through your first 8 weeks. At that point, I dare you to tell me that you don't want to stay. So at that point, you can upgrade and stay in the program, be assigned an accountability pod, so on and so forth. But yeah, one community, much more of a we'll prove it to you model than you prove it to us model. But the other tenets remain. Lots of proximity, lots of hand holding and everything else, and lots of transformation that happens in that time. So excited about it, and we launch every month.
Awesome.
So
cool.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's sweet. So I guess like who would you say is the target avatar for this? Like who, if someone's listening to this and they're like, I'm not really 100% sure if this is my thing, or like they're lightly interested, who would you say is somebody that should absolutely look into joining this?
Yeah, the folks that we tend to get and that seem to resonate the most are like, let's say 30 to 40-year-old men or women making, at or above 6 figures, in that range, net worth in the 2, 3, 4, 500,000 range, somewhere in that kind of middle, not close to $1 million, not close to zero, kind of in the middle somewhere, that are unfulfilled in what they do, or are on the path of what they're doing and it's fulfilling them. And they're like, wait, I could see a future for myself. I don't quite hit this GoBundance level yet. I'm not a millionaire yet, but I want to join this thing to get around like-minded people and also get proximity to millionaires that are in my space. So this is real estate owners. This is business owners, business buyers, all of that. But so the typical though is 30 to 40, W-2 with a side hustle entrepreneurial role that they're starting to get into, or maybe they just made the leap and they're starting to build their business or whatever it might be. And that net worth is kind of in the middle tier. And we have both sides. We have some people that are $1 million plus that like being there and that's where they want to be. We have some people that are 21, 22. And I think that's what we initially thought it was going to be, like 22 years old, like get you the skills. Like we have some, but really it's these folks that are accomplished, but maybe haven't done, like, you're collecting keys, right? Maybe they've just collected a few fewer keys at this point.
Yeah.
So they can't add it to their balance sheet, but they're doing what you do, right? They're in that space and they're driving toward it. That's probably the better avatar of what we do.
Right.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. And so I guess, do you have any guidance on people that, I especially see this a lot from people that come from like lower income families, haven't had the same opportunities, where they want to be that person, like they know that they want to be that next level, but maybe they just haven't had the ability to get that sort of W-2 income yet, or to build that base yet. Do you think that they would still be a good fit for Emerge, or would you have like somewhere else that they should maybe start first?
Yeah. No, I do. If they can, so to join Emerge Supercharged for the 8 weeks is $1,500. If you can afford to do it, I'd say do it. Absolutely. But if not, the beauty of GoBundance, right? Tim Rode has the One Life Fully Lived organization, which is a nonprofit that helps people that are looking to gain life skills around wealth. So if you're somebody who's just starting your wealth journey at the very beginning and can't afford to invest right now in yourself, I think what Tim is doing is fantastic. Not going to be as robust, not going to be as much support. It's like anything, right? Like when you invest money, one, you're going to be tied into it because you've got skin in the game. And two, it allows me to staff a business to support you. Whereas what he relies upon is volunteer time, volunteer money, all of that good stuff. But it's a great way to maybe get started. Like I think the vision at some point is if we get, younger folks, 17, 18, 19, 20, coming out of rough situations, maybe that go through One Life and start down their path of building wealth and building their income, that they come into Emerge Supercharged and then eventually hit GoBundance. Like that end-to-end story will be really cool one day once we have it.
It will be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think what you said too, like it's $1,500 and it's not just about the education. Although like I've said, it's amazing education. It's the proximity. You said that word a few times. It's the proximity to these people, to the network. And that's what's going to scale you so much faster. And so like, if you can afford it, do it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, good stuff, Jamie. I really admire what you're doing over there and everything that you've done too. You've had a pretty, I'd say like the path that you took to get there, you know, even you said you were unfulfilled with like that big W-2 job that you had, but that's a hard thing for people to walk away from, man. And that is like golden handcuffs. That's where people get it from. You've worked for 17 years. They get like a sunk cost bias. They're like, I've spent my entire life getting here. I'm now making so much money. My trade-off is I now have to be miserable for the rest of my life. And I love the fact that you said, I don't want to, you know, that I don't want to do that. I'm going to go and do something else. And not only that, but I'm going to do it in a way that is going to elevate other people so they don't go down that same path that so many people find themselves.
Yeah, there's two key learnings in all of this journey, man. And I think, again, if you're 28 or 37 or 52 for that matter, two key learnings that I've had. And one is that vision setting is just, it's something people don't do. I think they look at it as woo-woo or whatever, but by simply casting a vision. And when I say vision, I don't mean goals. I don't mean tactics. I mean, mine was, I want to be able to travel for 3 months with my family anywhere. That was it. Yeah. I want to be able to take my family anywhere in the world for 3 months at a time. And the job I had wouldn't allow that. So it became, again, identity, right? My identity became my vision. And I couldn't do what my identity was saying I was. So I had to move on. So that's one big one, is making sure that you are very, very, very clear on vision. And the second one was in my mind a moment ago, and it just slipped out. I'm sure it'll come back to me in just a second here. But you were talking about what's that?
I would say it's right. I got a second one too that adds on to that pretty good that I was going to throw on.
Let's do it. And I might remember it as you go. Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is, you know, establishing that, but like the vision setting, but also establishing that identity within yourself. So that was kind of the big thing when I jumped ship in 2018. And I was like, my goal when I left, you know, I'd just been learning about the FIRE movement, financial independence movement, and passive income. My goal was $5,000. And as I would do stuff and it was difficult and I was trying to figure it out, all sorts of things, I just would always say to myself, man, I am so excited for when I have $5,000 of passive income. It wasn't it wasn't like, how am I going to do it? It was just like, when I get there, I'm going to be super stoked. And that became my identity, you know, or like another thing too, is when I would go and introduce people, even though I had never invested in a property, I had never flipped a house or anything yet. And I was starting to connect with people. They would say like, oh, you know, how you doing? Like, you know, introduce myself. I'd say, hey, I'm Mike. I'm a real estate investor. And I'd never bought anything. Right. But I was dabbling in, I was trying to figure it out. And that makes your identity become that. And it enforces that vision that you're trying to get. And it's just like little switch. It can change in your mind.
Huge. It's a huge switch because people don't do that. And to your point, it's like if I said to you, hey, I'm going to go be a Navy SEAL. I want to be a Navy SEAL. Right. I want to be a Navy SEAL. So I'm going to do things like, okay, I think this is what the next thing would be. I think this is next. So I'm coming from where I am, trying to go to being a Navy SEAL. But if you wipe my memory, if you just completely come out of a coma, like no memory, and you came up to me, Mike or Dan, and said, dude, you're a Navy, like, I'm so glad you're okay. The SEALs need you back, man. You were a Navy SEAL. That's what you do. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, oh shit, okay, I'm a Navy SEAL. I don't know nothing other than I'm a Navy SEAL. So I'm going to do SEAL shit. Right. I'm going to breathe underwater longer. I'm going to, you know, like when faced with confrontation, I'm probably going to fight harder or in a better way than I ever could if I could remember myself before. Right. My endurance, like I got to hold shit up longer. Like I'm a SEAL. So the stuff that I do is coming from me being a SEAL, not trying to go to being a SEAL. I'm not guessing at the next step. It just is. This is what I do because I am. I know that's really like woo-woo, but that's the truth of vision, right? And that's the truth of creating that identity.
It's such a simple concept. I mean, it's hard to implement, Jamie, but what you're saying is so true. I mean, like you just have to, I think one of our guests we just interviewed said something. It's like, before you go to sleep, you have to pretend you're sleeping to fall asleep. It's the exact same concept.
Yeah, right.
100%, man. 100%. Yeah. I love that. So, I can't remember the second thing though. It was good. I promise you. No, but I can't remember the second thing.
No worries. If you can remember it, we can have Max cut it in. That's our producer. But all right, cool. So awesome, Jamie. Well, so much good stuff here. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. I want to jump into our end of show questions here.
I love this.
So the first question that is always the group favorite is, what is your craziest real estate investing story? And this can be a big win. This can be a big loss. This can be a crazy tenant, whatever. The only rule is that you're not allowed to tell a story about someone that like died in your property and you had to like scrape them off the floor, because we've had a few of those and it's just really depressing.
Wow, that is depressing. No, my craziest real estate story is a 15-year hold that I sold for less than what I bought it for. 15-year hold that I
really?
sold. Was it 15? Yeah, 15-year hold, almost, maybe 14-year hold.
That might be a record.
First property I ever purchased was not an investment property. It was my personal home in New York, right? And I bought it in 05 or 06, something like that, right before a bad time to buy. So I bought it. I bought it for $142,000. I put no money down, and then I refied for like $150,000 like a week later to take out $8,000 to do things on the property that I never did because I just burned the money somehow. And so now I'm 150 leveraged on this house in upstate New York, and I moved to Boston in 08 with my job. And at the time they offered like a reload package. They wouldn't buy the house, which was normal because of the time. They cut that out, but we'll give you $25,000 loss on sale. So if you can sell it for 25 grand less than what you bought it for, we'll pay the difference. Couldn't sell it. Moved to Boston. I've got this albatross of a house. Eventually it became the best thing that ever happened because I ended up turning that into an asset mentally and actually in on paper. So that I started to buy new property off of that, and actually gave me experience. The bank wanted to know, well, do you have any property management? I'm like, yeah, actually I do. I've been renting this house. I've hated it, but I've been renting this house forever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But the town I bought in, man, it like 2 prisons were the main industry, which was fine, but one of the prisons closed. So it just kept getting worse and worse. And I bought like in like a historically beautiful spot, but it was on the edge of the shitty area. And then the other side of it was really nice. And the shitty area just started to take over. So I bought it for 142, leveraged to 150, sold it for 99 in 2020. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, the debt thankfully was less. So I got like $3,000 at the closing table. So it's not like I came out of pocket at the closing table, and I lost money over the course of time, but it was drips. So I never felt like the impact of that $50,000 loss. But yeah, great lesson.
That is a unique story. And that is a good challenge to the old adage of, buy real estate and wait, because that's what you did and it didn't work out.
Sometimes waiting is worse.
Well, it's markets, right? You got to know the markets you're in. If you're in a dying market, and I was, then, and I bought it the wrong time and all that. And look, I could have held out to get 120 or something. I wanted it gone. So when I say 99, I told her, like, what moves it like now? Because I just needed it gone. Nobody I knew lived in this town anymore. I had moved on. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. It's like 99 sells it now. I'm like, fuck it, sell it for 99.
Yeah.
So,
right. And in your mind, it became more of a liability than asset. So you're just like, let's get rid of this liability. I want this off just the mental capacity was probably soaking up in your brain.
100%, man. I needed it to be gone. I felt so much lighter after it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. That's a unique one. That's a good story. All right. Second question. And I'm pretty sure I already know what you're going to say, but what is the number one tip you would give to a new investor looking to get started, or to a small time investor looking to take their business to the next level?
I think you have to just buy the thing, whatever it is. And I don't mean like just, well, fuck it, I'll buy that, like I did, right? Like I'll buy this, but you picked your market, you've done all this work. The problem I think a lot of people have is that they do this like ready, aim, fire thing. So they get ready and then they start aiming. And they aim and they aim and they aim and they aim and they listen to every Bigger Pockets episode I caught it at episode 275. I went back to 1 and listened to all of them and I'm caught up. And they write down that last question, like, what's the biggest mistake you made? Or one of the questions, they write that down on this huge list and they make this equal weighting to every mistake every investor ever made. So when a deal does present itself, it's like, this guy on episode 64 said, man, I didn't, I wish they would have had metal doors. I had wood doors and it got broken into. Well, this has wood doors. I can't buy it, right?
I can't buy it.
They disqualify every deal, no matter what mistake was made, and they don't fucking buy the deal. You're going to only learn how to lose 50 grand over 14 years when you buy the deal. By the way, the next 2 I bought, 2 burrs, I went into it. I bought them both for 170. Both had a lot of work. I budgeted 35 grand and I thought, man, I knew it was 35. I'd give it a little extra, 35 grand. It was 80. It was $80,000 in rehab. I still cash flowed. I still sold those and made money on those, right? Like you buy in the right spot, a good deal. It scratches out. It's like being a parent. You can't know what you're going to learn until you actually have the kid. No one can tell you what sleepless nights are like until you have a baby keeping you up all night. It just does. It's not possible. Same thing. You don't know you don't know what it is to be an investor until you invest. So for those that are capitalized, they know their market, they're looking at the deals, buy a deal, and you're going to fuck up. You're going to lose money, but that's the way you learn. It's ready, fire, aim, not ready, aim, fire.
Yeah.
Best advice. Buy the fucking deal. Simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Best advice.
Super simple. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, and that, I don't know what it is, but risk aversion, I don't know. Fear of failure, I think, is the big
fear of failure and judgment. Fear of failure leads to fear of judgment. Because look, if you failed and nobody saw it, no one give a shit. You ever trip on the sidewalk? What's the first thing you do? You look around. Who saw it? Nobody sees it. You're like, oh, I'm going to fucking keep on going. But if somebody saw it, you do that like, whatever. But fear of failure, fear of judgment behind that is absolutely what keeps people stuck in place, stuck in the mud on this.
Yeah.
Yep. That's so true.
Good stuff. All right. Last question. Where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you?
Best place right now is Instagram at the Jamie Gruber. My website is jamiegruber.com. So either of those two places or both, you'll see everything on my website, but at the Jamie Gruber on Instagram. And I'm getting a bit more into YouTube lately, some more longer form videos, a lot of stuff on quitting your job. So youtube.com/at the Jamie Gruber as well.
Yeah, and Jamie puts out a ton of good content. I love your stuff. I follow you on Instagram. It's good stuff. I'm excited. I haven't jumped on your YouTube channel. I'd like to see some of that long form stuff. And a lot of it's really good advice just around if people are like, I want to get out of the rat race, go follow Jamie. It's like legit good stuff. It's really just like on this podcast today.
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in case you haven't been able to pick this up, just like with so many of our guests though, but Jamie, I would say, is even more so on this. Don't be afraid to reach out. Jamie loves to engage with people. Like, just like most of our guests, Jamie hopped on here. One of the first things he said is like, hey, so how can I bring value to your audience today? If he brought you value, if you want to continue receiving value from him, go ahead and shoot him a DM, leave a comment on his YouTube channel, go visit his website, send him an email, whatever you can do. Well, something that we find with a lot of listeners when they sort of, like, I've had people reach out to me and be like, hey, I love this episode with, so-and-so, like, do you have any experience with, their product or like them or anything like that? I'm like, talk to them. They would love if you reached out. Like, that's literally why they're here.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yes. No, I appreciate it, guys. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. So awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Jamie, man. We really appreciate your time. And if you guys got any value from this, which I'm sure you did, or anybody that would also receive value, please share this episode with them. It is the easiest way for this podcast to grow, is if you share this with your friends, family, peers, that one coworker who won't stop bitching about how he hates his job. Be like, hey, listen to this, reach out to this guy. You don't have to work here anymore. Go ahead and share it with everybody. Aside from that, if you want to start generating off-market leads like Dan and I do, we didn't talk about a ton of real estate in this podcast, but that's fine. So if you want to start getting off-market deals that you can buy at a huge discount, you should go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/free. You can get our free 5-step guide to start generating off-market leads, and that will get you started right away. And if you start doing that, that'll start getting you towards that like kind of income point and that mindset point where, you can qualify for Emerge, or you can jump into a Dan and I's instant investor program and start doing big things.
Yes.
So anyway, guys, go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/free, get that guide. And besides that, guys, thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
See ya.